Well, I kind of goof that. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I got into this business so that I could have a big band. That was kind of my whole purpose of now that I have a big band, I malfunction right out of the gate with my big band. At any rate, welcome everyone. My name is Timothy Mitchell. I am here in my, well, I'd call it a studio because I have a whole bunch of expensive and high quality equipment and printers but it's a garage. I'm in my garage. That's the truth of it. But I like my garage, and it has all the features and things I need, including a host of different printers. In this case, I have behind me here the printer we're going to talk about today, which is the Epson Resin 5070. I've had it here about a year now, and I've been using the printer regularly. I've run a lot of different things with it. I've explored it. I've tried to get it to run with a bunch of different rips and color equipment and everything else. So I think at this point I have a reasonably qualified understanding of how it works and what it does. I have two other printers here in the room, and you'll see them as I play around with my cameras, so I may as well show you. Look at this. We have the top view, and then we have the regular view. We have the wide view, and then we have the other top view. So we can cover, I'll switch back over to this one. So we can cover all of the products from different angles. like it makes that much difference, but it mildly amuses me anyway. Hopefully you're equally amused. I see an old friend of mine here, Visam Boutros. Welcome from Canada. We go back a long way, and so thank you for attending. It's good to see you, my friend. We've set this up as a forum. It's not officially a webinar. A webinar is you guys are isolated and you can type in the chat. A forum is it's set up as a meeting. So if you want to, you can unmute yourself and you can ask me a question, and that's perfectly okay. I want to simulate what it's like when we're actually in a live demo so that even though it's remote, I want it to be informal. I want you to feel free to ask things. Hopefully I know the answer to the question. If I don't know the answer, I'll say I don't know, but I'll find out for you. And that way, you feel like you're engaged rather than just watching something that ends at a certain point and then you're allowed to ask questions. There is a chance I will answer the question that you have as I go along because it is somewhat progressive. So with that said, I figure I'll start with this printer. One thing I'm not going to do, I'm only a little bit going to compare and contrast the resin to the HP resin latex, because I want the printer to stand on its own. I want to talk about this printer as its own technology because I think there's things about it that are very unique, and Epson has a very unique approach to this. And on the whole, I'm exceedingly happy with this printer. The first thing I'll tell you about the printer is it is maintenance free. I mean, like I used to joke when I would do the HP latex stuff, I'd say latex is like a cactus and solvent is like owning a pet, like a dog. And you just put the cactus on the shelf and try not to overwater it. That is equally true of the Epson resin, probably more so. I have not had a printer that can just sit here, do nothing. I'll disappear for a week doing trade shows or whatever, and then come back and I go in and I go, what are the print heads? I'm like, they're always perfect. I did not do a nozzle check before I ran this print here today because I have such a high degree of confidence that it's going to be perfect that I don't worry about it. So as a category of printers that can sit and mind their own business and you don't need to do anything, this is a 10 out of a 10. It's like having an aqueous printer because in a sense it is aqueous. And that brings me to ink composition. What is resin? Resin is the same thing. Let me put it this way. HP latex is synthetic resin copolymer. Resin copolymer. It's a resin printer. HP didn't like the name resin because it just didn't ring, didn't roll off the tongue. So what they did is they named it latex. So I call it latex resin. The category is resin. Epson is a resin printer. Same category. Like you would have eco-solvent printers. I have a Mamaki eco-solvent printer here. Roland has an eco-solvent printer. Epson has a great eco-solvent printer. Those are eco-solvent. That's the category. Now, the inks may be a little bit different from company to company, but by and large, it's the same formulation. And what you have with that formulation is, I'll go back to the slide, water's the delivery vehicle, so that's what sends it over. So it's a water-based printer. It has pigment, and then it has this, effectively resin component. And the way that operates is, and for example, I'll compare it to solvent here. I have a Mamaki solvent printer, eco-solvent printer next to me. The way the resin works is and there's differences with the Epson because you have different heater systems. It has a 3-tier heating system. So what you're going to do is you lay down the ink, and I'll switch off that slide. You get the idea. I can explain it from now. The first heater is warming the media on this printer. The first heater is warming the media, and I have a nice little diagram later. I'll show it to you. That's going to warm up the media and prepare it evenly as it goes into the print zone. In the print zone, the platen warms. It doesn't warm much. It's about 113 degrees Fahrenheit is what it's set here. But that process, when the water lands, it's evaporating the water. So it is actually removing the water in the print zone. That's not really an issue because Epson piezo print heads run very cool. They're not thermal print heads, so there's no heat, and it's only needing 113 degrees to do it. After that, it rolls down into this curing zone, and that's what activates the resin to bond completely with the ink, and that gives you outdoor durability, scratch-free, and all that. What's done off the printer is a completely finished print, ready to go. You can install, no further need for anything. Solvent works a little bit differently in that the solvent lands on the media, it sort of digs into the media, and then you have a process of a post heater, which isn't much, usually a platen heater, a post platen heater, and that's going to finish it. And then sometimes you may even have to wait a little bit before you can laminate and everything else, because there can be a time period with solvent before you can laminate. You don't have that issue with resin. You can just print, install, do whatever you want to do. Once it is past this heater, you're good to go. A few things I really like about the media path. Now, I left this material on. It's upside down. I'll send you this is actually Charles Lavoisier. It's a painting at the Metropolitan Museum. I was going to print it out, and he's upside down, which is kind of funny. But I'm printing on fabric. So this is a challenging media. This is a product from Ultraflex called Bolero. It is a coated fabric. Customer sent it in, wanted to test it. It was on the media, the Epson version of their media locator. Epson has a cloud, and you can download anything you want. This was on there. I downloaded it. All I had to do was, load the media, put it onto the printer, roll it forward. I wasted almost nothing. I did not have to web this up to the take-up reel to do it. It's been running very stable right through the printer. You load in the back, it takes up on the front, it travels nicely. There's no obstructions going into the curing unit. So I have not had any issue where anything gets stuck or anything gets in the way. The curing unit is it attaches almost secondarily. So if you needed to, you can remove this finishing curing unit yourself very easily. I mean, it's like 4 screws. They're heavy duty screws to hold it in there, but it mounts well, it's easy to get at, it's easy to repair, and the media path is very nice. I've been able to print almost everything I have at the front of the pinch rollers with no waste. The only reason I rolled the fabric out just a hair is because it was kind of beat up on the front, and I haven't tried yet running fabric from right at the rollers, but I think there would probably be a pretty good chance it would work. So the whole path is actually pretty cool. One thing that is different about the way that Epson set up their optimizer. An optimizer is a component that's within this ink structure. An optimizer essentially is like sticky, and it holds down the ink onto the media so it doesn't get loose. Epson designed it a little bit different. What they have is a mode called quality modes, which are 14 pass and more. And if you use that, it's actually placing optimizer exactly underneath every drop. There's no compromise where you have a bidirectional pass and your optimizer in your first pass is ideal, and then in the second pass, it's compromised. Everything is exactly the same in both passes. That is an innovation that Epson added with their technology to the application of the optimizer, which is one of the things that pins the ink in place. Optimizer is treated just like an ink. It has its own print head. It has its own ink. You need very little of it, but it is the thing that pins it. When the ink lands on the media, the optimizer holds it in place, and almost immediately, if not all, most of the water is evaporated, and so everything is now held in place. you're not curing at this later point where you're removing everything. Everything is happening right in that print zone with just a little bit of heat. So very nice development there. Like the advanced optimizer usage, because that can be very important for really high quality stuff. I find 9 pass is generally my day-to-day running pass. It doesn't have that super optimized optimizer, but the way they designed it, it's still more than adequate to hold everything in place, and I've been very happy with it. A couple things that I think I should mention about the Epson. The print heads are outstanding. In my opinion, Epson makes the finest piezo print heads in the world. Their manufacturing is excellent. The consistency is excellent. The quality is excellent. It uses a variable grayscale head. A few specs on that. I may as well show you a little. We'll just kind of nerd out here. 1,600 nozzles per color, 800 nozzles for light cyan, light magenta. Variable drop is 4.9 picoliter minimum. And that last thing right there where it says user replaceable, yes, they're actually user replaceable print heads. That I'm going to get to in a moment too, and that's a huge innovation for Epson. So Epson being able to have a really nice path that you go through with the media, love that. The fact that they have optimizer and high quality modes where it's exactly under every ink with absolute no difference in your bidirectional pass, that's very nice. But the key thing here is to me, user replaceable piezo is a landmark. I haven't heard Epson say we're the first ones to do it. I'm surprised because I can't find any other real printer ever with a piezo print head that a user could replace themselves. It takes about an hour. It's easy. It's smart. I got to tell you, and it's not expensive. So I got to tell you, when I look at the life and longevity and color stability of an Epson piezo head, the extreme high quality, the detail, the variable drop, and then the fact that it's user replaceable, so that if something did go haywire and I had to replace the print head, it's one shot and I can do it all myself. And that's pretty cool. So that's one of the things I like about this printer and I think is exceptional, is the quality of the print head and the user replaceable and the affordability of the print head. I easily think with a water base, I'm very confident I'm going to get 5 years out of this thing. So it's not like I'm going to be user replacing thermal print heads. I go through them very much more regularly, and that's a cost. You know, they just deteriorate and you have to replace them. With this one, you have a long arc, just like you have like in an Epson S80 or 60, but then you can replace it yourself. And Epson also has this on their flagship die sub printer, the 10,000, and I believe that ability to replace the print head is going to be a hallmark for most. It's a benchmark that most companies are now going to try to answer. So you're going to see user replaceable piezo, which I think is going to change the overall printing game completely. I got a nice little video from Epson here. So what this is I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the manufacturing quality and the integrity of the Epson print head. I'm a huge fan. I think the detail, the quality, the grayscale, the reliability, the confidence that I have in it, and the way it handles gradients, grayscale gradients, it's exceptional. It has a very fine drop size, and it has the capability of generating different size drops so that the drop that you use, it has more or less density depending on how much color you need in your image. And if you see photographs and everything, you'll definitely notice that your quality here is just better. I mean, it's just remarkable. And that is a big difference. I can print very small, very high quality, and I know I'm getting the best I can. Now, it is a 6-color printer. 6 colors, so which is standard for point of sale, point of purchase. It's a commercial printer, but the gamut is still very good. Something I notice also about the printer is because the print head is so efficient, I'm using quite a bit less ink than in other similar technologies, you know, like 20% less. I notice that it takes less ink to achieve a really fine print as opposed to some other technologies which are going to use more ink to do it. Just some things that I've noticed on it. Also, as I mentioned, it has a piezo variable drop. I just got a little video here, a little eye candy. It shows you the different drops, but mostly that's the key photo. It can do a 5, and Epson doesn't formally publish it, but it's in the 4s. Let's say 4.5 picoliter drop, 5 picoliter drop on the first one, and then it can go into larger drops and it can adjust all those. And I think that's something that's really great. And here's like another little video also walking through just the general idea of user replaceable printheads. User replaceable printhead is a big deal, and I can't repeat it enough. I think it's very important to the industry, and it's going to allow you to have an extra printhead, you know, just sitting on the shelf that you have access to and can put in whenever you want to. And I think that's a great thing. You don't have to wait for someone to come out. You don't have to wait for their time. You don't have to pay them. I mean, it's a large bill. If I have this and I want to replace the print head and I have somebody come out, I'm generally looking about 3,000 American dollars last I checked, and it might be more, depends where you are and a lot of other factors, because you have to get the print head, and then you also have to schedule someone to come, and all of that is also an interruption of your day-to-day workflow, which I generally don't want to have. A couple caveats about the user replaceable printhead so you understand this. If you want the ability to replace the printhead yourself, and the last I checked, I think the cost of the printhead was like $700. But you do not get the option to replace it yourself and get the $700 printhead unless you have the Epson service contract. The service contract on the printer is what gives you access to the user replaceable printhead at $700. The service contract, of course, has a cost. You'll have to check with the Epson or the LexJet folks for what that cost is. I do think it's a smart thing to carry. The printer that I use to make my living, I would put, you know, I have a warranty on this, and that allows me to get that printer at that cost. But I don't want you to think later, hey, you got to do this to get that. I'm like, yeah, you do have to do this to get that. What they want you is Epson would like you to have the extended service warranty so that you're under warranty, and then you have the ability to get that $700 printhead. It's under warranty initially, but the chances of having to need your printhead during that point are very small unless you're just very malicious towards your poor printer, which I can't see. And considering how easy this is to use and how reliable it's been, no issues whatsoever. So I like that a great deal. Let me show you a little bit on the way that the process of loading a roll. It's a rear loading printer. So in my space here, it's a little tough to get back there because I got to roll up the garage door because there's not a lot of room. And I have 4 printers in this room. So it's, I don't have a lot of space, but as small spaces optimally, this is one of the tightest ones out there. So this is your load roll. And I'll just show this real quick. You can load either direction is fine. And I found this nice fella in Japan who, so I don't have to crawl around in the back and videotape myself doing this. I just found some other nice fella to do it for me. The feed and load roll system is very good. Epson has really proven it, I think. If anyone knows anything about the S60 or the S80, it should be very clear to you. It works the same way. The take-up system and the feed system are excellent. They're reliable. They don't have any mismatched tension panels, nothing going on. I'm a big fan, and I don't think there's any reason to be concerned at all. I did a big panel system here, if you look behind me. Now, this isn't your ideal panel system for a backdrop. You should have a single print, so I should use a 3.2 meter printer. That's coming. But what I did is I wanted to print all these LexJet panels on fabric. This was done on the EnduraFab Premier, which is a LexJet fabric, and I loaded it in. I used some fairly generic settings. Cool thing about the printer, it has the ability to have the head raise and lower in different positions, and you don't have to recalibrate the nozzles to do it. So Mamaki printer over here, I can raise and lower the carriage from the media. That's great. And I have 3 positions, but I then have to do a nozzle. It's not major onerous, but I have to do a nozzle realignment for each of those 3 distances. What Epson did is said, hey, when we do these distances, we've already figured out where the nozzles need to go. So all you have to do is choose the distance from the media. So if you're running a media that's thicker, or you have a media like fabric where you want a little more clearance because there can be some irregularity, if you load it in, it's going to use those settings by default. That is, it will place it in different positions based upon the media you load, but you can choose to bring it up or down. That's a cool feature. I figured I would note it because I think
we got one quick question for you.
Yeah, of course. Shoot.
Your friend in Canada says, And actually, I'll let him chime in because I just want to be clear. So I'm going to let him unmute, let him ask the question real quick.
Okay. Am I looking in the wrong
Okay.
direction, by the way?
No,
I have so
if
many
you're looking
cameras.
right now, you're looking perfect.
All right, great. Vitam,
Hi
nice
all.
to hear from you, my friend.
Thank you very much. I have cold and my voice is not the best, but just to distinguish between the heads here and the thermal heads, when you say the heads are user replaceable, you're not meaning consumables, right?
No, that's a good question. So with the HP thermal print heads are consumable print heads. The anticipation is you have two positions to replace them. The warranty for HP, I think, is currently at like 1.5 liters. But, you know, you're going to get way past the warranty. Now there's two other positions of replacement. The first one is as the print heads get old enough, let's say 3-4 liters, you're not going to be able to hit the target color density that you did when the print head was new. So the print heads lose a certain ability to hit the same intensity of depth of density or intensity of color as they get older. For some people who are very color sensitive, they're going to replace those HP print heads, let's say 4 liters. I think that would be a fair recommendation from me. Within HP, I've had different people say different numbers. If you want to run it like I did, which is I run the print heads on the latex until there's nozzles out and then there's like visible banding, then that's a much longer arc. That might be 6 liters or more. I've gotten 6, 8, 9, depends. The print heads are, though, consumables. One is either a consumable at, let's say, 4 liters, and the other vision of running a printer is going to be a consumable at 7 liters. You're going to replace them. They're like $180 each, and there's a bunch of them in there. And you're going to be going through that. So that's a bill. A production shop every 6 months might replace all their print heads, depending on how much you run. And your color sensitivity. Epson, not replacing. I'm running this for years and years and years, and the color is not going to shift. You're not going to get density shifts. You're not going to have color not irregular, because the piezo print head is a long-term color proposition. The print head is solidly stable. It doesn't drift around. It doesn't shift. You might get a little shift over like a year or two, and that can easily be corrected in the software. You know, like you can just do a linearization and you'll be good to go. You do not have the degradation in an Epson like you do with thermal. And then every time you change a thermal print head, you have a new color adventure, because now your print head is better than it was when you just took it out. The colors have shifted. You have an onboard calibration, but in my opinion, this is my opinion, I would not try to color calibrate with any degree of sensitivity on an HP latex printer without an external color device, i1 Pro, Barbieri, running through a third-party software. My i1 Pro 3, if I have any questions, it goes back to Granville, Michigan. They certify it, send it back, and I know that that's dead on. So yeah, that's a really good question, and thank you for helping me clarify. One of the key things and values of this Epson printer is color stability across long runs and day-to-day, and color between one printer and another. I have a very high degree of confidence that if I had 3 of these things, every one of them would look like each other, and they would look like each other in a month from now, or 3 months, or 6 months. They don't drift, and you don't have to replace the print head. When you do have to replace the print head, it is user replaceable and it's inexpensive. So if you looked at the two together, like in a 3-year or a 5-year plan, I expect to get 5 years out of this print head. I'm going to take good care of it. It needs everything it needs. I'm not abusive to it. I don't run into things. If it's 5 years, and I look at HP's cost of print heads over the cost of 5 years, that is a very different cost of operation. One of them is thousands of dollars, and the other one is 700 at the end of it, which would be 700 divided by 5. So give or take, I'm at 125 bucks a year overall if I take care of it, and I anticipate a 5-year lifespan. Might do better. But that's a big difference. The print head is not treated as a consumable on the Epson. It simply has the ability to replace it yourself when the day comes. Or if you do something stupid. We all do something stupid. Every once in a while, I just am not paying attention and something I goes in there and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And now I'm thinking I'm out $3,500. I'm not. I'm out $700 an hour of my time. So the user replaceable is just the convenience and ease of being able to do that and then not having to wait on somebody to show up. Did that answer kind of your general gist of it? I think you were trying to prompt me into like getting a better grasp of this is not a consumable. It's a permanent print head, just like the S80 or the S60, except it has the ability to be user replaceable.
Yeah, that makes it good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, my friend. All right, so a little bit that brings me to, I want to show you, it's got a very nice, so a couple of things. You've got a feed roll and a take-up roll. Both of that is very elegant. Same on the S60, S80. It's a proven thing. It has a nice edge guard system. The edge guards, I do use them. They go on very nicely. You just sort of pinch the edges and slide them along the platen. I have found them to be useful. They have not been obstructionist. They have not been dangerous. They have not concerned me at all, so I like that. I mentioned the heater zones. You have 3 zones. Preheat warms up the media so it's uniform. Platen heat, very light but removes most of the water, and then it goes in front of the finishing air circulating curing unit, and that finishes it and activates the latex. The inks themselves, you have 2 options with this printer. They're all 1.5 liters, and I have the 5070. There's also a 5070L, which has 2 of those bags, and that gives you a lower price and cost of operation, as well as then it would give you 3 liters. I found these super easy to put in and remove. Periodically, the printer will come and tell me, Timothy, there's 2 things I want. I want you to take these bags out and just roll them forward and shake them. And I do that about once a week, and it'll tell you on the printer. So you just take them out, roll them forward and back, and put them back in. There's also a maintenance liquid. When you get the printer, and I do recommend you get one, get about 4 bags of that. Now, the cool thing is it's about $20 a bag. They're cheap. But those have to be in there for the printer to operate because they ensure the lubrication of the print heads. It gives the printer a very nice advantage of no need for maintenance. You just leave it alone and it does its thing. But you have to have the maintenance liquid in there for the printer to operate. So I usually get a few extra bags. And that way I have them around when it's time to do those. So I think that's useful to remember. There's also a wiper unit. Now I'm about to replace mine. I have one, it's virtually done. And the wiper unit is easy to replace. That is the actual wiper unit. And I have mine right here. It could go out at any minute. I figured if it went out during the forum, I'd be cool with putting the new one in. These are not really that expensive. They allow it to keep the print heads clean and moist throughout the operation of the printer, and it gives it that sort of unattended flair. A few other things of note. Since everyone always wants to know this, those are your standard speeds. I run almost everything in 9-pass. 9-pass is my day-to-day high-quality production speed. It has a nice blend of speed, with no real degradation in quality. Everything looks good. If you need to go one step up, 14-pass, that's what I'm running on this fabric. It allowed me to put a little more ink down. That also is the point where you have maximum optimizer application where it's directly underneath each individual drop. I have never used 5-pass. It didn't occur to me. I have found applications that are useful in 6-pass. I have loaded nothing in 20-pass, and I have, or 26-pass, and I have used 20 for some backlit. As far as applications, I have run all kinds of backlit. It looks phenomenal. I have run all kinds of canvas. It looks outstanding. Wall covering of all types looks great. Here's one. This is a paper that I loaded accidentally, and I did this for a client. I hope she's on the line. This is a media that was initially sold with the HP latex. It is the HP photorealistic poster paper. And they sold it with the old latex 260s, 265s. And those printers had an evaporative unit in the print zone. When the HP released the 360, they got rid of that. And when you loaded this paper really on any latex printer except maybe the new 800, 700s, it's a disaster because they're carrying all this water into a curing zone and evaporating and curing at that spot, and it just buckles and cockles all over the place. Well, I loaded this by accident into this Epson, and I didn't know, I forgot what it was, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, that looks really good. And when I took it off the printer, I couldn't believe that it had worked so well. So really what Epson has done is they've allowed me a much wider versatility on things like paper and poster papers, where I'm really not that concerned about what paper I choose because their structure of heaters, the way the platen works, the way their platen takes some of the water out is allowing me a much wider range of materials than I normally would have had with traditional latex resin, in my opinion. Another kind of cool thing here that's worth seeing is if you're looking about outdoor durability. So this is something that I built last winter. I had to take all my trees down because it was time for them to go and I lost all my privacy. So what I did is I built a privacy screen on my deck and then reinforced it and then used mesh. So this is an Ultraflex mesh, printing some really nice high-end Japanese screens that are at the LACMA Museum, and then I installed that with banner ups. And what I really wanted to do here is I wanted to see, does it print on mesh? Now, it doesn't have an ink collector like the HP does, so that's one big difference. The other, of course, it doesn't have white ink. It does not have an ink collector. So you cannot put the ink collector in the platen and run linerless mesh. But I ran a linered mesh. It has a very nice low temperature, did not disturb the liner. The liner came off perfectly. I then installed that outside, and after about a year, it looks fantastic. I mean, it looks great. There's nothing whatsoever. The colors have remained vibrant. There's no issues, and it has taken a beating. You know, that deck area gets direct wind and very big wind, 60-mile-an-hour stuff. Everything is held perfectly. So very happy with the quality. Comparing it to the latex, honestly, I got to tell you the quality on this, the gold, everything else, head and shoulders better out of the gate using default profiles. Speaking of default profiles, real quickly, the printer comes with its own RIP. Okay, it's called Edge Print. Edge Print is actually pretty formidable. There is no reason not to use it. If you want to print on this and you don't want to buy a secondary RIP or you don't have one already like Onyx or Flexi or Caldera, that is not an issue. If you want to run it in Onyx, Flexi, Caldera, whatever, Print Factory, good, great. It'll integrate perfectly. You just have to have the dashboard on, but otherwise it works great. But it does come with a RIP, and it is an Adobe RIP. And it looks very nice, and it integrates perfectly with the printer. So if you do buy this, you do have a fully fledged RIP that comes with it, and the RIP is no joke. It is a very nice RIP. For the vast majority of people, it will do everything you want. And that's what I did with this. I went in, chose Bolero, chose the defaults, went into Edge Print, lined it up, sent it over. It worked flawlessly. And I got very nice looking color. So I've been using it as you would buy it out of the box, and I've been very happy with it, and there's no need for me to switch. If you have a slightly more complicated workflow, certain finishing cutters or things like that, yeah, it may not give you what you want, but it is a nice feature. It has a full media library that's downloadable. You can get it anytime you want to. A very large selection of medias. I've been very happy with the quality of the color, the settings, everything else has been right. I have not needed to adjust anything. And there's also a thing called Epson Port. Epson Port will do costing. It will be aware of maintenance issues. It will send you information for updates, whatever you need. So the Epson Port is a login that will monitor the printer and allow you to do complex costing and every other conceivable thing. It also is an app on the phone, and I can track jobs and everything else on the phone. So that's a very nice feature as well. It does have some robust software support, and Epson did a nice job with the software. Well, I think that's the main thrust of what I want to cover. In closing, I think the biggest advantage of the printer, outstanding color, consistent, reliable print heads. They don't drift, they don't change color. So when you print panel jobs like I have behind me here, everything prints the same. The colors match. They match on the first one, they match on the end one. I don't have any concern whatsoever that halfway through a roll I'm going to get a color drift. It's just not going to happen. I mean, it just doesn't happen with these print heads. They run very cool. They're very reliable. They don't drift. They don't drift from day to day. You don't have any of the color challenges that I associate with thermal print heads. And thermal print heads have their advantages, and the disadvantages to me is just the color is drifts all over the place. Unless you know what you're doing and have some sophisticated color equipment and you're trying to hit colors every day on panel jobs, you're going to struggle. I don't. I just run it on the Epson because it's not going to drift. I think the take-up roll and feed roll is very accurate, and I'm not worried in the least that it's not going to be irregular on my panel lengths because the panel lengths are going to be dead on. And I think using the 3-tiered heater system is a big advantage for how heat is applied to the media as it goes through. And if you look carefully at the way the 700 and 800 was engineered for the HP latex, you'll see that they started adding some of those components to their workflow that Epson came fully released. Epson has these tiers because they want to create a media that's very uniform in temperature going into the print zone. They want temperature in the print zone that has a function, as well as, so you create a homogeneous print zone that also evaporates the degree of the water, so you're not having all of the work being done after you print it as it goes through the curing units. All big advantages for Epson. That's it. Hopefully I'm within a reasonable amount of time. The thing is, the printer has so many features and innovations, it's kind of hard to keep it tight within 30 to 45 minutes.
No, you're good, Tim. I think if you wanted to take a few minutes, I know you had mentioned potentially talking a little bit about the software. We have some time to jump into that if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, what I did is I set up a computer that I run all the printers with. And so if you like, I'll do a little share here and kind of walk you through the key pieces of software and how they work. So share. This is the RIP. It's intuitive, it's easy. I just, threw an image on here and it kind of fits roughly the size of the media. The media is determined, at the point where you get it. So I brought that in and I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to do a couple things here. And if you look on the right side, there you can see the width. That'll be fine. It's a 32. I might bring it down a little bit. You can center it automatically or you can do it visually, which is how I did it. The one thing I might do here is I might rotate this so that when I rotate, so that's your layout. There's your job info. Here's your basic settings. Now, this is set for adhesive vinyl. That's incorrect. I'm going to go down here and select the Vortex Bolero, which is in the media, I would say media locator. It's their media cloud. 14 pass look great. I did it 14 and 12, and honestly, I really couldn't see that much of a difference. With this coated fabric, I think you get there at 14 pass. So I'm going to run a little slower, or excuse me, a little faster. This is slightly over 100 square feet an hour on fabric, which is a pretty good clip for fabric generally. All of these settings you can largely just leave alone. And then layout. The only thing I might do, orientation, is 180 degrees. So I want it to print right side up. Color settings, you can pretty much leave alone. Now, I don't know if this file is CMYK or RGB. If I'm using, if it is CMYK, I want the rendering tint to be perceptual because it's an image. So I just set them to perceptual. You can do that in the defaults as you see fit. I don't use color replacement really, so that's not going to be something I'll apply. You have various marks. I'll put a job label on it so I know what the job is. You can crop, you can tile, and then you can step and repeat. So it's an intuitive, easy to use, functional RIP that would give most people everything they really need to do it. And all you do is go up here and hit print. Let me just make sure that I've rolled this forward and I don't print on top of the job that's already in there. We're good. And we'll hit print. And I'll leave that alone, and that'll go do its thing in the background. So moving over, that's the actual RIP that comes with it. This is the Edge dashboard, and this is how you go online and gather information that you want to put in. So I have gone out and selected that the sill is what I chose for the paper that I printed on in the Ultraflex Bolero. All you have to do is go up here. It's grayed out because it's running at the moment. You tell it's a 500 series, you go to a media vendor, so you see a ton of them on there, or media type. So I was looking for a, let's say we're looking for a wallpaper, films, textiles, papers. There you go. There's a nice selection right there of fabrics. And if you use this, I think it'll make your life really easy. And there's the Bolero. So that was right there on there. You got the Samba, taffeta, multi-tex, a lot of commonly used fabric type products. I've used some fabric that's woven a little thick and it's not coated, and that has run just fine too. I haven't really had any concerns or issues. So that's an interface called the Edge Dashboard. This is the constant interaction, and it's based in a browser to the printer. Your Epson port is here, and I only have one printer really. And then from here you can do production monitor, cost reports. You also have production reports, and then my devices. This is a little bit more for people who have a fleet or a few extra printers, other than the costing, which you definitely want. And again, as I mentioned, I find the costing to be very frugal. That efficient print head doesn't need as much ink as a thermal technology does. And so it's very efficient with the ink. And then this is just printers and spectrophotometers that are my devices. And that's pretty much, what the extent of, let me stop sharing, the extent of what's needed for the software. So RIP comes with it. HP Latex doesn't come with a RIP. And it's a nice RIP. It's good. It'll get you what you want. And I've been very happy with the default settings for all the profiles. I haven't really had a need yet to go out and build my own color profiles. That was not true previously on some other technologies where I built everything myself. With this, I look at it and I'm like, wow, it looks great. I don't know who made it, but they did a very nice job of it. They made a lot of them. And then if I don't have it, I use a similar surrogate, like a media that's real similar. Like they didn't have this HP photorealistic poster paper, so I just found this sill paper that was about the same weight. It transferred perfectly as far as the settings go. This is going to warm up. It doesn't take too long to warm up, but once it does, it releases the job. I would be very confident running most of it unattended. It's an ideal wall covering printer because, again, panels are the right size and right length. They don't shift. They're not irregular. I also have no concern about color shifting. I don't have color shifting concerning one printer on itself over time. And if I had multiples, I have a customer in Chicago. He had a fleet of thermal printers, colors all over the place every day. Nothing matched, nothing ever matched. Every day was in a new adventure in color. They bought a fleet of the Epson R5070Ls. All color issues disappeared. And they could verify it because they started doing color verification every day to determine where's your baseline. They would use the I1 and then read the chart, and the thermal print heads were just off by sometimes magnitudes of 3, 4, 5 delta E. These Epsons, almost nothing every day. There was virtually no drift because they set up a color check in Onyx to verify, is this within tolerance? And the Epsons just stay within tolerance. And that's the advantage of piezo print head. The disadvantage, you had to replace them, they're more expensive and you would have to have somebody come in and replace them, and now Epson has addressed that issue as well. The only couple weaknesses that I would say things I would like, this does not have a built-in rotary cutter. Doesn't have a built-in cutter at all. The cutter is my scissors or my knife, and I cut it. There's a little spot for you to do it, and then I just do it by hand. But having a rotary cutter that I could just say cut and it drops down and cuts it nice and smooth, that is nice because it's particularly nice for things like print and cut workflow where I just want to put it in completely square. It ensures too that I always have a nice cut when I load it back in and won't come in dog-eared. So on the list of things I want from Epson is a built-in cutter. More of an annoyance than a deal breaker. And white ink would be nice. Truth is, I rarely use white ink, and the white ink I have in the HP is crazy expired because everyone who went and bought white ink hardly uses it. They figure that out. So if you've got a 3-liter box of white ink, chances of you using that are astronomically low, unless you already have big white ink jobs. White ink is what everyone tells you have to have, and in reality, if you look at what people actually print, white ink is a very small sliver of the overall market. So I don't use it very often. I don't care. White ink is not a big deal to me whatsoever. It would be if I printed on more Lintec optically clear, or a lot of flatbeds really have more of a white ink workflow. I just don't see as much white ink necessity. So I would rather not have it unless there's some compelling reason why I've got to have it. Ordering it just because you think somebody might come in and want a white ink job, I think that's a huge mistake. White ink is difficult. It expires easily. It collapses. The ink suspension is a problem, and it requires 3 times more attention than just CMYK, light cyan, light magenta. All problems in printers are white ink related if you have a white ink. So it works, but you have to have a point to have it, and you have to have the justification to run it, or I think you're just setting yourself up for frustration and a loss of revenue, really. So away it goes. It just sort of does its thing in the background, and fabric was one of the things I was most concerned about running. It's one of the more challenging things, especially with no take-up reel. So your feed mechanism here is dead on. They've got that vacuum right and everything else. I couldn't do this on the HP latex. I'd have to put it on a take-up roll and everything else. It wouldn't work. Anything else, folks? All ears. BSOM, I hope you get better.
Can you talk about the setup and installation time on these machines?
Yeah. I was actually looking for, I took a videotape. Okay, here's the good news. The problems I'm going to articulate are not your problems. They're LexJet's problems, okay? You just get to stand back and watch. What I saw when it was coming out of the truck, so I don't have a loading dock or anything. I'm on a residential street. So he had to come in with a forklift and get this thing off the truck, and I videotaped it. And it was interesting, I'll say that. But he got it off the truck, that's great. Then we rolled it down here. It's 2 big boxes. One big box is the printer, the other big box is the heater. Now, once it's out of the box, what you have to do is you have to take these long metal poles and you slide the long metal poles into the printer. And then Epson recommends, they have a little, I'm glad somebody brought this up, because this is, I tried to look for the photographs and videos that I made, and I can't find them right now. So then we've got to get the printer onto the stand, right? And we're out in the driveway here. Well, this printer is heavy. I'm telling you, it's heavy. It's heavy, and you've got to stand. So what you have to do is take these poles, lift it up, set it on the stand, and then make sure it's aligned to where the stand is, and then you set it down and then you secure it. And after that, you're good to go. Putting this on is very easy. Everything else is very easy. Taking it out of the box, no problem. Printer on stand requires, according to Epson, they showed at least 8. They might have had more little fellows they draw in their illustration. We had 4 of us. 4. Okay, and one person to slide the stand under the printer. Once you commit to taking it off its little mounts and bringing it in the air and walking it forward and putting it on the stand, you have to commit. You don't have anywhere to go. So I asked everybody, guys, we're going to lift this thing, and I'll tell you right now, it's heavy. So you're probably holding neighborhood 300 pounds at least. Can you guys all do this? And thankfully, we had some strong guys. We lifted it up, held it. Then whoever was in charge of putting it on the stand put the stand on the wrong way. So we set it down, realized it was wrong, and had to lift it up and do it all over again. So please make sure you have the stand it goes on in the right position. 4 people probably wouldn't do that again. I would probably go round up some more people and do it with 8. Because once you hold that thing up in the air, it gets heavy quick. And at some point, you just can't hold it anymore, so you have to get that table under. That's LexJet's responsibility. That's the responsibility of the installer. But we may reach out to you and say, can you have some people available so that we can hold that thing up and then slide that stand? And once it's on the stand, we're good. It rolls around perfectly. You attach the rest of this stuff. That is inevitably a bit of a I don't know what to say. It is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I wish it had come self-contained. I have high confidence that the Epson engineers said, if we put it on the stand and on the crate, there's too good of a chance that something will go wrong in the printer and shipment. Shipping can be a crazy business. Things get sent over from Asia. It's on a container. I think the Japanese engineers said, we want to protect this thing and we're not going to let it, those go as a single unit, so you're going to have to attach it. So you might have to have a few people around. 8 should get it done just fine. 8's fine. 4, I took a picture of us afterwards because I was pretty proud that we held this thing up as long as we did as they goofed around trying to get that stand on. And it worked. No damage, no fun, nothing. It works great. Out of the box, everything went perfect.
And once it's installed, what can the consumers, our customers here, expect in terms of a realistic time for a learning curve to be up and running and printing and feeling confident with this?
A day. Really, it's a very intuitive and easy to use printer, especially with the built-in rip. It seems like it makes the noise, it's a little aircraft, like it has you can hear it in the background. I don't mind it a bit. For some people, they might say, I don't like it, makes too much noise. I'm in printer shops. It doesn't bother me in the least. I like the heater better. I just think that's a better heater than the alternatives. And I love the fact that I'm not concerned at all that there's going to be an obstruction here and it's going to get stuck. And one of the things about the HP workflow is getting stuck in that curing zone is just, honestly, that's all gone on way too long. That's a huge miss that needs an engineering solution. Epson came right out and said, we got this. And I like the fact that if this ever had to be replaced or repaired for any reason, I can take the whole thing apart, no problem at all. I found ease of use and ease of setup very good. Like once it's running, no more than a S80 or an S60. So it loads on the back, it feeds through. I think I could show somebody and have them printing in 1 8-hour day, go over some fine tuning in the next day, and then just have regular sort of video, because that's what we do at LexJet, is we set up video support conferences so that if you're having any concerns or questions, you can reach out to us. We have a team with these printers. I have one. I don't mind jumping on help and helping you whatsoever. I mean, that's what I'm here for. It's why I have the printer in my garage. So I have the cameras, I have the media, I have everything here. And so does our facility in Sarasota.
It does. And so as the print comes out behind you there, it's dry to the touch, right? They don't have to worry about.
This is all dry. Yeah. So poor Mr. Lavoisier, it's a beautiful print, all right? Well, he lost his head in the French Revolution. Maybe that's why he got printed upside down, which was a big mistake. He's one of the greatest chemists ever in the history of the world. So I have him with his chemistry set. This is all dry. This is all ready to go. I can sew I'm going to make those into backlets. I'm going to sew gaskets into them. I'll use the Banner Ups adhesive gaskets and then put that in a backlit. Yeah, everything that's really cool about water base, no odor, Green Guard certified, no environmental concerns. Like when I run this in the HP, no smell, no odor. I run the Eco Solvent over here. Yeah, solvent has a little bit of when the solvent printer is running all day heavy. Mm-hmm. With the Epson, for a space like this, I really need to look at ventilating the Eco Solvent, maybe moving some of it out there. What I do is I just bring the garage door up. It's warm most of the time here in Georgia, so it's not a problem. And then these two latex, this resin printer and the HP resin, no issues. You can run them in a room like this all day long. I might circulate the air with a fan if it gets a little warm.
So the model you have behind you, what's the maximum width it can handle?
60. It's a 64-inch printer. You won't see many 64-inch rolls, but you will see 63-inch rolls. 63 is the half of a master roll, which is 3.2 meters or 126. Cut it in half, it's 63. So you do see 63-inch rolls. That's the maximum efficiency for a master roll. Excuse me, cut in half. 54-inch common, 60-inch common, you can get 63. And then you can run anything narrower than that.
Perfect. Timothy, thank you so much. Are there any questions from anyone else while we're waiting?
Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I've been wanting to do this for a really long time because I love the printer, and I've done a lot with it. A little piece of advice. There's a feature I showed you in the software which is called dashboard, right? Dashboard has to be running active in a browser for you to send things and communicate to the printer. That's how you at a computer, at a PC, talks to the printer. If you want to run Onyx, for example, which I do, Onyx needs dashboard open so they can talk. The dashboard is the intermediary communication tool to the printer. It's how you know what's on the printer, how to get medias back and forth to the printer, all that stuff, all right? So that's how the printer communicates. I would recommend only loading one version of dashboard on the PC that you want to be sending files and ripping from. I have a whole bunch of PCs. I have 3 over in the other room. I have 2 in here. I have a laptop upstairs. I started loading different versions of dashboard and go, oh, well, we'll send it from upstairs on the laptop. We'll send it from here, you know, because I have Onyx Thrive, so it links to the whole network. No, don't do that. Dashboard gets confused if you have a bunch of dashboards loading to the printer. You'll be like, how come it can't see the media I just loaded on from the one downstairs? Well, that's because they don't talk that, like, they'll talk, each one will talk to the printer, but they won't talk to each other properly. So choose one printer, put dashboard on it, and any media you load onto here or take off, how you communicate, just communicate at one point. That will save you a lot of frustration that I went through going, how come, why doesn't, because I have it running all over the place. And it doesn't like that. Now the RIP can run all over the place, but the dashboard, I would recommend loading and doing everything in an interactive way on the printer from one spot, and you won't get confused. It's not really that much to ask.
Timothy, we're at just less than a minute. This is going to be cutting off automatically, I think. So I just want to make sure we have an opportunity to thank everybody and let you wrap it up.
Great. Folks, thank you very much. I've been trying to set this up. This was my first kind of pilot run, my first chance to do this in a while. Thank you for joining me. No reservations about recommending the Epson 5070. They did a very nice job. Anybody that says otherwise, bring them to Print United. I'll be more than happy to show them to the contrary. It's a great printer. And it's going to make things, which is good. It's going to create it. It has set a new bar, to my opinion, for resin. HP has some new printers out. They're going to have to answer. All the EcoSolvents are going to have to answer. All the UV printers. So right now you have EcoSolvent UV, 2 resin competitors. Competition is good for you guys. Oh, and I got my goodbye. So ready? Hold on. Got my little farewell music. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy your weekend. Get better, VSOM.